Okay everyone, welcome to Fair to Compare. This is our technique that we use for comparing and ordering decimals. We start off talking about, you can see the little baby over here saying, hey, that's not fair! And we do that in the classroom. If we see numbers that aren't fair, the whole class goes, hey, that's not fair! In the most whiny voice that we can do. And by being fair, we say make it balanced. So let's look at this first example here. Let's talk about it a little bit. So this one, we've been talking about it already. This is 34 hundredths because it ends in the hundredths column. And this is 5 tenths. And I've told the students this would blow my mind when I was in 4th and 5th grade, because up until this point, 34 is always bigger than 5. As long as they've grown up, if you have $34, that's more than $5. So this is an interesting dilemma that we put them in. But through all the work we've done with the base 10 blocks, we can do this. We can go, okay, well this is a long, so it's like saying we have 3 longs, and those are baby cubes, so we have 4 baby cubes. Well, this is saying that we have 5 longs. How many baby cubes do we have? And the students will say, none. Okay, so we have none. Is it okay if I put, and sometimes I call it the invisible 0 here? Yeah, it doesn't really matter. None is none. But now I've made it fair to compare. And then I say, okay, now start thinking about it like money now. Which one's bigger, 34 cents or 50 cents? Well, obviously 50 cents is bigger. And the way that we can identify that is by making it fair to compare. I've got the decimal and 2 digits here. I've got the decimal and 2 digits here. So if they just remember those concepts and they keep referring back to those in their mind, those base 10 blocks, what they know about the base 10 blocks, the flats being the whole, the longs being the tenth, and the baby cubes being the hundredths, they can identify that and they can make sense of it. So this isn't actually 34 versus 5, this is 34 hundredths versus 50 hundredths. 34 pennies versus 50 pennies. So we look at the next one. And like I said, when I was a kid, this would have been 30 versus 3, and 30 is bigger than 3. Now we make it fair to compare. There's my decimal and 2 digits. Well, I need then a decimal and 2 digits. And then we all say, hey, that's not fair! And how do we make it fair? Fill it in with that 0, because that 0 doesn't add any value to the question. And we talk about how this is like a dime. 3 dimes and 30 pennies mean the same thing. So now we look at it and we go, oh, they're actually equal. As we work down the page here, you can see I try to start throwing some tricks at them. And the trick here is, hey, that's not fair. Once again, this has 3 digits. This one only has 2 digits. What a lot of kids will do is go, okay, well then I just need to give this one its 3rd digit. You're looking at this and going, well, obviously that's not right, and we talk about this. I put this on here for a reason, so we go, we have 1 digit in front of the decimal and 2 digits behind the decimal. So we need to have 1 digit in front of the decimal and 2 digits behind. And they're starting to see the pattern. What can we use? We can use 0, because it doesn't give it any value. It's like saying $0.34. And I constantly use money, especially when we're just dealing with out to the hundredths place, because it makes sense. It's something they can identify with at first. It gives us a foundation. So now we look and we go, well, that's $2.34. That's 34 cents. That's obviously bigger. Here's where the trick starts to fail us a little bit, though. Make it look like money trick. And that's when it comes out to the thousandths place. So I look here, hey, that's not fair, because you have 3 and I only have 1. Well, let's give it 2 more. We've learned we can make it zeros here. And now, that doesn't look like money. But we can talk to the kids at this point and go, well, what's bigger, 409 or 500? Well, 500 is obviously bigger. Same thing down here. Hey, that's not fair! Make it fair. 1, 2, 3 behind the decimal. 1, 2, 3 behind the decimal. And notice that I'm using that terminology of in front of the decimal and behind the decimal. You can't assume that they're going to know. You have to talk about where the number location is. And in this case, that one's going to be equal. Now let me show you a couple of the problems that the students have worked on in class. These would be problems from their math journal. If you look, a lot of kids want to start throwing zeros on there, and I go, why? It's already fair. 1 in front, 2 behind, 1 in front, 2 behind. It's already fair to compare. You don't have to do anything to it. 24 hundredths is bigger than 18 hundredths. Now the next one, 1 in front, 2 behind, 1 in front, 1 behind. We need to add an extra 1 there. Now it's fair to compare, and we can put our sign there. Same thing with the next one. 1 in front, 1 behind, 1 in front, 2 behind. That's not fair. We got to give him an extra 1. And 20 hundredths is less than 35 hundredths. That's just comparing two numbers, but we can use this same trick when we're ordering decimals. Make everything fair to compare before you order. And we'll show you one problem here. Down here at the bottom I have an ordering problem. So put these numbers in order from smallest to largest. If I look at each one of these, they're not all fair. Well, let's start making them fair. 1 in front, 2 behind. 1 in front, 1 behind. Instead of trying to just jam a 0 in here, what I had the kids do is cross that off and we just write it down underneath it. 1 in front, 2 behind, 1 in front, 1 behind. Cross it off, write it underneath it. And now, if I tell them to start thinking about it like it's money, because all of these look like money. We've got dollars and change for each one of these. We can start putting them in order. Let's see here, 0 and 5 hundredths, or just plain old 5 hundredths like we talked about in the other lesson. We don't always have to mention the number out front. And instead of scribbling things out, I usually just check them off because we don't know if we're right. And if we're wrong, you've scribbled out the answer, so just check off the numbers as you use them. After that, I've got 50 hundredths, 55 hundredths, and 5 and 50 hundredths. Well, 50 looks like 50 cents, so I think that's going to be next. And 55 hundredths will be after that. So we've eliminated 50 cents and 55 cents, and our last one is 5 and 50 hundredths, or $5.50, because keep referring back to things that they are familiar with until they become comfortable with this. And that is fair to compare.